this is Archana. We are back with another episode of Flames of Enlightenment. In Flames of Enlightenment episodes, we interview various community members and understand their engagement and the reasons for being engaged with the community. And so as part of us today's episode, we have Shajive Jegenathan. Welcome, Shajive.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, I ask a standard question. Please share about yourself. Let the audience know who you are as a person, personal, professional.
Thank you, Archana. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on this podcast for our temple. As you very well said, my name is Shajive Jegenathan. I serve as the president of the Hindu Society of Minnesota. So that's this mandir. I also serve as president of the India Chamber of Commerce, and I also serve on the board of Bharat Media Group, which is a TV channel, as vice president of the board. And I also have my day job, where I serve with research and development at Medtronic, so I shuffle my time between these four.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I know you're probably shortchanging, and we'll get back to more of your background later. So tell us, how did you get engaged? What was the trigger, or how did you even know about the temple?
I think what got me into the temple was when I first moved to Minnesota. I was trying to find something that would take me back to my roots, right? You're in a foreign country. You're trying to find people who you can connect with. You're trying to find a culture you can connect with. And growing up, I went to so many temples with my mother. And for me, finding a temple meant finding a root, a connection, a certain space that I felt like home. And so when, at the time, this was in 2008, someone told me there was a Hindu temple in Minnesota. And I said, there's a Hindu temple in Minnesota? Who built a Hindu temple in Minnesota, right? And I was a college kid. I was a 17-year-old. I didn't have a car, and I borrowed my friend's car, and I drove down to Maple Grove, 1992 Chevy Impala, fantastic car, broken windshield and all. Drove down to Maple Grove, and I saw the grandeur of the temple. The Gopuram was still being built at the time. There was still scaffolding and construction going on. But here it was, this big temple in good old Maple Grove, Minnesota. And I still remember to this date when I first walked in through that front door and I went into the shoe rack room. Back then they didn't have shoe racks, it was a room and you just leave your shoes and God willing you'll find it when you come back down. But back then it was just a room, right? I mean, the temple is evolving over time. We're constructing, we're adding. It's meeting the needs of the community over time. And back then it was still evolving. And so when I walked in, there was a certain indescribable feeling of finding home. And that's what got me started at coming to the temple, right? And I'm eternally grateful for my friend who told me there was a temple here. And eternally grateful for my friend's 1992 Chevy Impala for getting me here. And then, of course, the fact that I found this temple, and I've been here ever since. It's been my home. It's been my connection to my culture, my religion, my spirituality, and what defines me as a person.
How did you get roped into the different roles you have played? So walk us through that part of your experience. I think you started as a gift shop volunteer, if I'm not mistaken, and here you are. So how did that happen?
Yeah, that's a funny story. In 2009, January 1st, I was told, because I was coming to the temple quite a bit in 2008, I was told that January 1st is when we have this big New Year celebration. And I said, wonderful, I want to be here. So I borrowed my friend's 1992 Chevy Impala and I drove all the way down here on January 1st. And a huge crowd. There's 1,200 people in the temple, and I'm like, wow, this feels like I'm home, and it's a big crowd. And I was walking up the stairwell to the left of the temple. As I was walking up, there was this little kid, I think he must have been about 15, and he had a sign-up sheet. And he looked at me and he said, would you consider volunteering? And I'm a college student. I'm a freshman, and I've got more free time in my hand. I said, "Well, sure, yeah. What does volunteering entail?" And I clearly remember him saying, "We do stuff." I said, "Fun, sure, yeah, of course. I'd love to. It's a great way for me to be part of a community. Not just to come here on a Sunday, but also be part of where I'm giving back in a certain way, in my own little way as a college student." And so I remember signing up. I put my my student ID email address and my phone number. And then I went upstairs, I did my darshan, I came downstairs, and I left. And a few days later, and I completely forgot about it. And a few days later, I got an email from then volunteer chair, and if I'm not mistaken, that was Padma Naidu, if I'm not mistaken, who sent me an email and said, we're grateful for you signing up to volunteer, and we have an event coming up. The Holi festival is coming up March, and we need volunteers to help with ticketing. And I said, sure, I'll be there. And that was my first foray into volunteering at the temple as a ticketing volunteer. I started at the ticketing desk, and I started volunteering. And somebody at that time, I don't remember who, I met Padma that day for the first time in my life, and welcomed me with open arms, said hello, thank you for volunteering, and I said wonderful. So I remember checking in all these guests. I think this was at back then we would have our holy events at Osio High, and I was checking in students and checking in people, and everyone's going in. And at the time, I ran into someone who said, we need more people for volunteering every Saturday and Sunday. Did you know about the temple gift shop? And I said, I am aware of it. I've been there. Ironically, today we reopened the gift shop.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, yes, I am aware of the gift shop. And he said, you should consider volunteering at the gift shop. We need some people to cashier. And I said, when? Is it because I have school Monday to Friday? No, it's just the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. And I didn't have a car, so I said, sure, it's fine, I can do it. So I went back and borrowed my friends Chevy and Paula, and I drove all the way back here every Saturday, Sunday, to volunteer in the gift shop. I was a cashier every morning. I'd sit down from, I'd open the store at 10, and that's the first time I met Ganga. Because he would help me open the store. I started with the gift shop, and open up the store, cashier in the gift shop, and I remember trying to sell as many products as I can, and I was really out there. And from that I think that's what kicked off the whole journey to where I now am as president of the board. But it started really at that gift shop. And then from the gift shop meeting back then, the president of the temple was Akshaya Panda. I met his wife, a wonderful person. And I was telling her, Auntie, I'm really good at graphic design. It's a hobby of mine. If the temple needs help with flyers, I would love to do something. It's therapeutic for me to do art, graphic art, and I love the process of doing it. So if the temple would like, and I remember her saying, "Oh, but the temple can't. It's not going to pay you." I said, "No, I just want to do it for fun. I don't want to be paid for my time." And that then kicked things off to me meeting Pooja Bastardkar, and then at the time she was secretary of the board. From that to then becoming deputy communications chair, volunteer chair. Actually, no, take a step back. Before deputy communications chair, I was in the IT team for a while. Then from IT team to deputy communications chair, to communications chair, to volunteer chair, to vice president of the board, to now president of the board.
Yeah, so you've pretty much done it everything except the food, I guess.
Yes.
Maybe you should come to the food side for some time. Yes. I didn't realize you and I actually have something common. Padma was the one who roped me into the temple too.
She has a...
So we have something common which I didn't realize, so good to know. I think the other questions I had was, so you've had a very good journey, you know pretty much the intricacies of every single department, you can say, for us. But you're now also our youngest leader, if I'm not mistaken. You pretty much lead a very, very senior team in age, in experience, but then you have your own vision, and then you have to drive your vision make sure that you are influencing our senior leaders who come with a tremendous amount of experience and background about the temple, which we probably don't have. So how do you go about, as a leader, what are some of the things you could enlighten the audience from a leadership perspective on how we can learn from your experience?
Yeah, I think it's a blessing, honestly, having a team with this much experience. I'll quote our own religious chair, Sripad, who said to me, "You've been blessed with one of the best teams you can have." And I fully agree with him. It's true. Because if you look at every single people on our team, that I was very intentional about picking the people on the team. They're very, very experienced in the temple. They've served in a variety of roles just as myself. Some I've known for a while, some I don't know. But I looked at their experience, I looked at what they brought to the table when we put together this team, right? Having a very wise team that has what I like to consider tribal knowledge, right? Because me coming into this, I'd say I've been on the board for about 7 years. But most of the folks that are on my team have been in a variety of areas for more than 7 years. So they're bringing that tribal knowledge of, here's why something happened, which helps me understand how do we navigate that. So it's a blessing in so many different ways. So how do I put my vision into a scenario in that situation? Well, it's actually quite simple, because if you have a shared vision, then everybody's able to get on board with it. And so if you recall correctly, on day one of my presidency, one of the things I set forward is what I call Vision 2024, right? So it's very specific and intentional in saying, this is our shared vision, not mine. It's our shared vision, and it's our shared vision for our community, for the over 60,000 devotees that we serve, and growing, right? That's about 3,000 devotees a month. So that's our number, that's our KPI, right? So if we're serving that many devotees a month, we are not only on the board, we are not only leaders on the board, we are also devotees. So we are also serving us as a subset of that devotee group. So when you can get a group of people to believe in the shared vision, which they did, because you don't put it as a me, it's us. But what I need in order to execute such a shared vision is experience. And so your experience from years of being on certain areas, our vice president's experience from years of being on our board in a variety of different roles, our EC secretary, everyone has so much experience that they bring to the table, which makes it that much more easier for us to tackle the challenges that we have as an organization. And also be able to preemptively identify where we might hit a certain challenge, and how do we preemptively do certain steps to address that. So it's a blessing more than anything to have a very wise and experienced team that's working with someone that I get to work with, and I'll cherish it. I think it's been the honor of a lifetime. As I am now transitioning out of my role as president this year, it's been the honor of a lifetime to work with such an incredible team.
Yeah, I think, that comment about it's an us and we are in it together probably helps shape versus a me mindset. I would be remiss if I don't talk about the internship program, which we are now branding as a junior executive program. So, I think you were instrumental in starting it. So, how did that come about? It's a very successful. We have pretty much, the board cannot be surviving without our interns. And so, share what was your original thought process and how do you see it evolved? And whenever I look at them, I just feel so happy to see the kids.
Same, right? And that's the notion of it, right? Including the people behind the camera here at this point. The internship program started as an experiment. Right? I was vice president of the board back then. Padma was president of the board, and I had this idea, and I said, when I go to a variety of events related to organizations and Hindu associations, one of the significant challenges that all these organizations have is the next step, right? Who takes over after us? How do we ensure the baton can pass on? And how do we instill the value set in the next generation, right? And so I went back to thinking about me and what got me through that door and what got me to sign up to that 15-year-old kid asking me to volunteer and what got me to be part of the gift shop. Purpose. If I have a purpose and I feel like I'm adding value, then I feel valued. So using that as my foundational principle, I went ahead and proposed the idea to back then the president, and I said, hey, I want to start this program. I don't know if it's going to be a success, but let's start it. We talk about it. Let's do something about it. Here's an opportunity to do it. And Padma, the wonderful president that she was, said, run with it. Try it. Let's see what happens. Started with one. Right? Vispana Dipali, the first intern. And still here. Still here. We have 47 now. 47 and growing. We get so many applications a day at this point that we can't keep up with the sheer number of candidates that are applying, and great candidates that are applying. So that shows me that kids are finding a tremendous amount of value in the experiences they're getting from the temple. When I shaped the program, I didn't want kids to just be called, you're a volunteer who's doing this, but it gave them real roles. They're social media analysts, they're SEM analysts, they're in so many different roles, where they're financial analysts, marketing analysts, they're analyst roles and program management roles and project management roles, and we have folks who are working on artificial intelligence and machine learning, and so many different titles that are real world titles because it's real world impact. What these kids do, like the folks behind this camera, recording this episode, editing, cutting, chopping it, putting the teasers out there, doing the marketing out there, real world impact. Real people see it. So if it's a real world impact, it has to have a real world role. So that was the foundation behind it. And I think that got more kids excited about saying, oh yeah, I'm at the temple, and I get to do this. And I've always said this from day one of when we founded this in 2023 to where we are now. The success rate, my KPI here, right, my key performance indicator of success, is when a young volunteer or an intern, now we call them junior executives, refers to the temple as my temple, not the temple. So the minute that the vocabulary changes to my temple or my mandir is when you know you've hit that KPI. And the more I hear it, the more I realize we're hitting that indicator year after year after year after year. And it is incumbent upon us and the next leadership and the next leadership and the next leadership to continue to foster that, because it's the next generation of individuals who will become the next leadership, right? And they need to see that path, and they're seeing it now. From becoming an intern, then promoting to junior executive, you're quasi on the board. Quasi, not really, but quasi on the board. You have access to the activities of the board. You have access to shape the future of your mandir. And for me, that brings a great deal of happiness, as what you said, to see the success behind it.
Yeah, I think what I've realized is they join as interns, and what you said, they haven't left yet.
Yeah.
And they're still engaged, they still are very active. So hopefully, that the path, the type of work, the experience, the exposure is what they're striving for, and that's what's making them happy also. So thank you for the wonderful program we have. I'll just ask my last question now. We'll wrap up. What's your message for the community?
Message for the community, okay. Our temple, right, it has a significant purpose in our purpose. It not only serves as a space for us to practice our spirituality, which is key, which is why it's called a temple. But beyond that, our temple serves as a place of belonging to bring together our communities, which can sometimes be fragmented over the notion of a variety of tribal things. But the one common denominator we all have is our mandir, and Hinduism has spirituality behind it. And we need to continue to foster that unity among our community. That is how we can continue to grow and evolve and foster the next generation of individuals who can hopefully take the baton forward. And this temple has a remarkable divine thing that happens when you walk in. You feel calm and relaxed, and most people say if my mind is a little troubled, I'll walk in through the door and go upstairs, and then you just all of a sudden feel it, that's gone, right? It has this divine vibration that this temple has, and that is applicable to communities. That's applicable to communities that are traditionally fragmented to come together. And I think that the key takeaway I would have for folks in our community is find that in this temple, right? Find that reason to come together, because there's a reason we are a community, right?
Yep.
And it is together that we can move forward. It is together that we can accomplish great things. But this space is such a wonderful, inclusive, welcoming space, and we're growing. We're a growing space. We're a growing community. And we're continuing to evolve and get better as an organization, as a temple, on how we continue to grow and meet the needs of our evolving community. So if I were to say my key takeaway for the community is find that reason to belong and keep fostering our community here.
Thank you so much, Shajive. If I had to summarize also in my own words, I would say find your purpose and be here. It's a community. You will make a lot of friends. I have personally grown my network just by coming here. So find your purpose, be part of our temple, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Local Files. Until we bring the next episode, namaskar.